We are back on Patriots 4th and 2, the official podcast, PatsFans.com. I'm Russ Goldman. Along with me, as always, is Steve Balsherry, today in the Secret Square, and Derek Havens. In the episode today, yes, we are going to look back at that train wreck in Las Vegas to figure out exactly what we watched. We've seen other teams do it. Now we've watched the Patriots do it. And what does that mean? We're going to talk about that to begin this show. Just a little precursor to what we're talking about within the game, because we'll talk about the game as well. Later on, we'll preview the game against the Bengals. Also want to mention, as always, guys, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help Patriots fans find us. We want to grow this audience, so please do subscribe on YouTube, on the PatsFans.com YouTube channel, and Apple Podcasts, and any other podcast app that you have. Okay, guys, let's get to it. We're going to talk about the game, but I'm not going to pull any punches, guys, and this is not something that I normally do. This is not a Russ's rant. This is going to be me. I've given this a lot of thought. What we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the game. We're absolutely going to do that. And this is not a radio topic. This is coming from me. You ready, guys? So I've had a lot of time to think about it. We've talked about the triumvirate with the New England Patriots, the quarterback, the owner, and then, of course, the coach. You need all three to win in the NFL. You do. And I'm going to pose something to you guys. We've talked about this before. I've been very open and said Bill Belichick should stay as long as he wants to coach. I've said this. I've outrightly said this. But I've also said that you need the triumvirate to win. And the problem with the dynamic that we have right now is that there really is very little accountability. And this goes all the way to the top. They are living on their past. So, guys, I'm not going to pull any punches. Let's start with the CEO, Robert Kraft. Should he step down as CEO and have the duties go to Jonathan Kraft? Because, again, he is ultimately responsible to what we're doing. I'm going to start at the top. Before we talk about Belichick, let's start to talk about Robert Kraft and his responsibility to what has happened this season, Derek.
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I think the problems are with Bill. My issues are with Bill right now. It's Robert and Jonathan. I think Jonathan's handled more and more responsibilities.
Okay.
The last few years. I think this goes back to 4 or 5 years ago where Jonathan seemingly got more and more involved. Now, I think Robert still obviously is the guy that's going to sign off on everything. Okay. But to me, it doesn't need to go all the way up to the Kraft. But right. I do think to where I feel like you're going to ultimately end up taking this conversation is I do think that we've seen so far a lot of uncharacteristically bad things from this team.
That's what I want to talk about.
That's why I think that, I mean, and even if really the team ripped off 3 wins in a row to end the season, which isn't going to happen, but we've seen enough this year where the Krafts and Bill need to sit down. And I think there needs to be some pressure put on Bill. And I'm not going to, I think you're coming closer to my side of the street, Russ. I've been frustrated for a while now.
Okay.
I don't think it has anything to do with the past. It's what's happened the last few years.
Right.
I don't think that Bill has put the team in a good position to win and to move forward. And so if I'm the Krafts, I'm telling Bill, like, hey, you need to make some wholesale changes on X, Y, and Z. We can discuss what those are later. And if he doesn't want to do that, then I think you have to have a very tough conversation about what you want to do.
Okay, we're going to talk about Bill in a second. Steve, I know you guys weren't expecting any of this, but I just wanted to really look at the triumvirate because we also, you need the quarterback as well. But if we're going to talk about the coach, which we're going to talk about in just a second, I wanted to start off by talking about Kraft. Now, Kraft is, and again, I'm not an ageist or anything. He's over 80 years old. He's the same age as my mom. They went to high school together. And we don't know what his responsibility is, right? He is the CEO. Is Jonathan running the Patriots? We don't know. So how much of the responsibility for what is going on down there do you put on Robert Kraft? And should we really even not blame him for this? That's why I'm asking the question. Should he be the CEO at this point? And just own the team?
I don't think that's the issue. I mean, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Him and Bill might have had several meetings, and contentious ones at that, but I don't think, to reiterate what Derek said, and one of our listeners, Mike.
Yep.
I don't think Robert's the problem. I think it's Bill being stubborn and not wanting to, see the forest for the trees in this aspect.
Okay. Fair point. Let's jump to talking about Belichick. And I'm going to ask the question, should Bill Belichick be fired, Steve? Now, I'm going to share my thoughts. I want your thoughts as well. You and I have talked a lot about this. I have been one for the longest time that has said, can coach as long as he wants. Steve, as we just said, if you want to say ultimately responsible, you go to ownership. Beyond that, it goes with Belichick. Everything that's going on right now with the team being very badly coached, it's Belichick's fault. It's ultimately Belichick's fault. The coaches that he's hired, the plan that he has given the quarterback has been horrific. He is ultimately responsible for the coordinator, for the quarterback's coach, for that coaching staff. It's on him. And if this was any other team, we would be having a legitimate conversation about Bill Belichick being fired. And I'm now here to tell you I would fire him. And I can't believe I'm saying it. I would fire him because I think part of the problem that we're having is that they need to bottom out. And Derek, you said this too. They won't bottom out under Belichick. They need to rebuild. And he won't allow that to happen because we're going to be an average football team. So I'm now going all the way in, and I'm saying that Bill Belichick should be fired. I can't believe I'm saying this because but I'm doing my Bill Parcells saying I reserve the right to change my mind. So Steve, you and I have talked about this. I've not shared my views on this. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you hold him responsible for what's going on? You don't have to agree with me that he should be fired, but do you hold him as responsible as I do?
Yes. I mean, and Bill said this in the summer. If this fails, it's on me, not on them.
September
it's on
7th.
me. And I mean, he was quite clear about that, and it's true. As I told you offline on Sunday, if I was Robert Kraft after watching that debacle in Las Vegas, I would have sat down with Bill on the plane ride home and said, look, this season's now shot because,
it is, Steve. It's gone.
Yeah, I mean, mathematically, yeah, they're still in it. But looking at those 3 games and they can't beat Vegas, who's a terrible team, then you have to say this season's tank. Now, Bill will never admit that, until
but we all agree that even Bill has to think. I mean, he's made some bad mistakes the last few years, but we all agree he's not dumb. So you have to think that even in his mind, this is going worse than obviously he planned it. It's not like he planned for it to go this way, but you got to think in his mind, like, Jesus, like this is just horrific.
Right.
Like the special teams is bad. I think defensively, I don't agree with some of the things they've done the whole season, like dropping Matt Judon on third down, whatever. But I think defensively, the coaching staff's in a better place than special teams and offense. And I thought this last game was a perfect, all-encompassing issue of what's been going on the whole season. I mean, dumb, uncharacteristic, undisciplined. I mean, they're less than the sum of their parts. I mean, they're literally the polar opposite of everything we praised this team for being for 20 years. This team is the opposite. And the only thing about this game that's been different with the rest of the season is that the offensive line played better than they had pretty much previously. Aside from that, it's pretty much been Ramondre Stevenson with the team on his back. Mac Jones was one of his worst games of the year. He looked horrific. Receivers were terrible, running terrible routes, dropping passes. It just comes down to coaching, little details. Like, it's just not good enough. It's not a professional operation. And Bill, to me, this is where really, it comes down for me. Bill, for a long time, has let so many people go, and right now the cupboard is bare. He has not restocked the shelves, and he doesn't trust enough people from the outside. So when you let 6 coaches or whatever it was go to Vegas to the Raiders, and you keep Kaylee and you bring in a couple of guys you trust and move them into spots where you think you can, they'll be okay at. Well, that's not good enough. There's not enough voices in the room. There's not enough people that actually know what they're doing. Like, it's just so obvious the problems that they're having on offense. I mean, it's a joke, and it's not just offense, but I mean, this to me is just Bill. Like, that's what we're saying, Russ, right now is Robert needs to sit down with Bill at the end of the year and say, we need to make some wholesale changes to this coaching staff. And if Bill doesn't want to do it, then I would fire him.
Okay, so you would give him
I'd give him one more year if he's willing to make changes. You
would give him the out. I'm actually not going to give him the out because I truly believe that they need to blow this sucker up.
Oh, they do.
And they need to start over. Now, they've actually have a decent foundation with the draft. Okay, they do. But the problem that I think is going to continue, Derek, is that we're going to continue to see a mediocre football team. Any other organization, the fans would be saying, fire the coach. We're the only ones.
I said that a couple weeks ago.
We're the only ones that are sticking to it. I can't believe I'm going on the other side of this. I've gone to the dark side. I've become Darth Vader. I can't believe I'm doing this. But I'm that fed up with what I saw after we watched the game. I spoke to Steve, and it started building with me that I'm like, man, I think this goes beyond this one game. It goes way beyond that.
See, I know that Bill's not going to fire Matt Patricia or Joe Judge, but what I would do if I was...
that's the problem.
Yeah, there is a problem with that, but I think Cam Accord sucks. But I know Joe Judge can coach special teams. So if Bill wants to move Joe Judge to special teams and put Matt Patricia back in whatever role he was in last year doing behind-the-scenes crap, and then he actually hires a quarterback coach, an offensive coordinator, another offensive line coach, if he wants to do those things, then that's fine, because I honestly think that – see, the thing is, the problem is, the talent's not good enough on this team, but – the talent is better than what the product has been. Oh, and that to me is why it comes down to coaching and details and everything else. So I would love to just actually give Mac Jones a chance and give him, I don't think he's the guy, but I want another year of, I've seen him play better than this. And I want another year of an actual offensive coordinator, an appropriate offensive line, and maybe an upgraded receiver to see, okay, is he the guy or not? Because right now what we've seen is basically 3 years of us all wasting our time and wasting a time after a rebuild. And almost every decision Bill has made has been the wrong one for 3 years in a row. And that's why his job should be on the line.
Right, Derek. And that's what goes back to me talking about the triumvirate. This is not just like a 3-hour radio show where we talk about should he be fired. No, I wanted to have a constructive conversation about it, because when you look at the triumvirate themselves, if you look at Kraft and you're thinking he's ultimately responsible, he is the CEO, the day-to-day is the CEO. So the buck stops at him, and then right below him is Belichick. 2/3 are failing that quarterback. They're failing the quarterback. They're not allowing the quarterback to succeed by giving him the proper weapons in coaching to succeed. It actually starts with Kraft and then goes to Belichick, because Kraft allows it to happen, Derek. He ultimately gives the power to Belichick. So at some point, do you say, Jonathan, it's time to take over? Maybe you'll have a different way of handling the New England Patriots. We don't know what the dynamic is. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. But I am that upset that I actually came on this show, not telling you guys that I was going to throw these topics, because I'm just that angry at watching the Patriots' demise. And you guys were basically telling me, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm all in on this, because I want the Patriots to start over, and they're not going to under Belichick's regime. They're just not.
All right, we're gonna flip roles right now. I'm gonna ask you the same question you asked me 2 weeks ago when I said the same thing to you.
I know.
Who are you gonna bring in? Who do you want? Give me a name. Give me a name. That's what you did to me. Give me a name.
Sean Payton.
Yeah, there you go, Steve.
Steve just said a great name, Sean Payton. I
would have no problem with that, honestly. But I'm telling you right now, I don't.
Okay, I mean, we've gone on for like 10 minutes. Can I finish my comment about this?
Absolutely,
whole thing?
Steve.
Yeah, that's true. I did jump down your throat, Steve.
Go ahead, Steve, please.
I said, I lost my train of thought on the plane ride home. If I'm Robert Kraft, I have a talk with Belichick.
Right.
And here's where my thing comes in. I'd have a talk with him and say, you have to get over this thing you have about hiring people outside the organization. I understand that you're loyal to the people that you bring in. But right now, the Patriots, through 20 years of success, what did they always have? They always had that next man up. They were grooming the next guy up with players. All right. You go back like 20 years. How many times did the Patriots let a guy go? What did we say? A year early rather than a year too late.
Yep. Right,
they always had that with the players. Same with the coaches. When Romeo Crennel and Charlie Weiss were the coordinators, those guys were tremendous. And what did they do? They knew they were going to leave at some point and get head coaching gigs. So they groomed the next guy up. In Charlie Weiss's case, he groomed Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels turned into an outstanding coordinator. However, when they brought, when they almost lost Josh McDaniels to the Colts, they didn't groom anybody for this.
No.
No, and they should have been preparing for that since the moment he got off the plane. Before he turned around.
Absolutely, you guys are 100% right on that.
And that's why
they didn't groom Josh's replacement.
No,
I think most of us thought it was going to be Nick Cali, a young guy coming up, and teach him the ropes. And if he takes over the play calling without the title of offensive coordinator, that's okay. And if they had struggled with Nick Cali this year, I wouldn't have had that much of a problem with it because he would be learning. He'd have to get that chemistry with Mac Jones. Same as we talked about in the preseason with the linebacker position. If they go with the young guys and they struggle, that's okay because they're changing things up. They're trying to get, a group of guys in there, and the linebackers have turned out just fine this year. I still hear people talking about they're a weak spot on the team. I don't see that a bit, but that's another subject. But anyway, if I was Kraft, I would have talked to Bill and said, you need to start bringing in guys from the outside. They have the smallest coaching staff in the NFL. And all of these problems that we're seeing on the field comes, in my opinion, from not having enough coaches because, guys are spread too thin. They don't have people in their ear. And all of a sudden, these mistakes keep happening and happening. I think it's because they're short-staffed and guys are spread too thin.
Can I expound on that? Just give you an example. So in this last game, just to tie in with this game, right?
Sure.
You saw receivers rounding routes. You saw a couple of receivers in the same spots at the same time. You saw Mac Jones not being in rhythm with his receivers in terms of his dropbacks. Dan Orlovsky on ESPN talked about this weeks ago. You saw it perfectly in this game. If the quarterback's going to take a 3-step drop and then throw it, well, the receiver shouldn't be running as deep of a route because it's timing, right? It's like, okay, if it's a 3-step drop, then he's not going to run 15 yards down the field. He's going to run like 5 and then cut. Or if it's a 7-step drop, it's a little bit longer. Everything is out of rhythm. It's just out of balance, out of sync, like Steve said. And the problem is, it's like you're seeing the same problems all year, and it's not like they've been they had a problem and they corrected it. They're not correcting it, and that's the issue. Yeah. And to Steve's point, and I said this a couple weeks ago, it's like, look at Buffalo right now. You lose Dayball, they have Ken Dorsey right there. Who's behind Ken Dorsey? Joe Brady, the LSU offensive coordinator from a couple of years ago, who was with Joe Burrow, who was with the Panthers for a cup of coffee, and now they have Buffalo kind of grooming him to be a couple guys behind. And the succession plan for these Patriots coaches that left has not been strong enough. Like, to your point, Steve, and Russ, also to you, I would, if I'm Kraft, I'm saying, why don't you go find like a college, head coach who has a really, really good offense and bring him in as the OC, if he wants to make a move to the NFL, or bring someone, like, look at some of the best offenses in the league, whether it's, the 49ers, the Rams, I guess not this year, but they have a good lineage of coaches, the Philadelphia Eagles. Try to find someone, a receiver coach from there who you think who could make the move up. Like, you have to figure out how to start poaching from other staffs like everyone else did to the Patriots for the last 20 years. They have to bring innovative guys in.
Yep.
And I'll give you another example of a guy who would make a good offensive coordinator, in my opinion.
Oh, I know you're going to say.
He's about to get fired.
Oh, go ahead.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh, okay.
That one I'm not so sure about, but I could see Bill looking that way. You know,
and Bill, as Bill talks highly about him, talks about when he was here, and they have a great relationship. But anyway, back to my point.
Steve,
if he dug in his heels and said, "No, we're not doing that," then I would get, Sean Payton on speed dial.
Okay, and that's where you're going, Steve. You want to basically push his hand. You want him to force his hand and make a decision and do something. And if he doesn't, then he's gone. So basically, you're giving him the out. You're giving him the out. I understand where you're going on there. Like, listen, you either do this or you're out.
Yeah, because it's not working.
No, it's not.
I mean,
it's not.
I was the one that said, give it a chance.
Yep.
I was saying that since OTAs. Give it a chance. Let's see what happens.
Well,
if it doesn't get better, then, it's time to move on. Well, we're 14 games in, and it's actually worse than it was week 1.
Okay, good. Well, listen, I'm glad that we started the show on such a hyperbolic topics, 2 of them. But I just, again, I think we're also very frustrated. We're fans. We want to see them do better. Steve has done a great job of covering the Patriots. We'll see if we can get to his grades. I'm not sure we'll have enough time because there's more venting to go on. Because I'm going to
can I make one final point real quick.
Go ahead, Steve. I'm Derek. I'm sorry.
All I would say is I could accept that they're rebuilding and maybe they lose to the Bills 47-20. Okay, it's like, yeah, they're rebuilding. It's going to take a little while. They're just not talented enough. What I can't stand is how they're losing games this season. They should be 2 or 3 games up if they were coached better. I mean, better coaching puts them in the playoff picture legitimately. I'm not saying they're going to win the whole thing. I'm just saying they're tossing their hat into the ring. They are 2 or 3 games worse because of coaching mistakes alone.
Yeah.
And that to me is where I get frustrated.
Okay. Well, that's going to lead us to talk about the actual game. So let's do it. Steve, you and I were just talking about off air before we started the show. Let's just go. There are probably about 5 or 6 different places where we can go on this. Give me one. Where was the game lost? Actually, I'll give you one. Let's talk about the drive when they're on the 1-yard line, because we could start there. That's where the game was lost. But there are others as well. Let's start here. Give me your thoughts when you were watching this debacle.
Well, they got the first and goal. They run Ramondre Stevenson. He gets to less than a yard. It's probably about a half yard from the goal line. So I'm thinking, don't mess with it now. Just pound the rock with either Ramondre Stevenson or Kevin Harris. Get the 6 and move on. Vegas hadn't stopped anybody with a goal-to-goal situation, I think, since last year. And of course, Mr. Rocket Scientist, Mr. Matt Patricia, has been so conservative to the point of being nauseous this season. He decides to get creative. And he wants to start flinging the ball all over the place down there on the 1-yard line. And I'm like, what the hell are they doing? You're on the less than the 1-yard line. And you got a guy like Ramondre Stevenson who constantly breaks tackles. Either run a quarterback sneak or run it with Stevenson. Just punch the ball in. And they don't do it. So they throw this pass that Jones missed horribly to, Jonnu Smith.
Yep.
Then, as I wrote, Bill called the timeout because he said they didn't have the play right. And then the play is beautifully executed. Jacoby Myers, runs the fade to the corner. Jones throws this beautiful arcing pass right in his hands. Touchdown. Wipe it out because we call timeout. That's a microcosm of the Patriots offense this year. When they don't have it right, everything works just fine. And that was the stupidest sequence. They wasted 2 timeouts.
Doesn't end there, though.
Well, no, it's like
and at the time I was thinking this offense couldn't possibly get any worse than this. As Eddie Murphy said,
And, if it's, and the thing is they're not even trying on some of these third downs. It's like they get to like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and they just run a draw. They just give up. Like they don't even try to throw it to the sticks. And if I see another receiver on 3rd down run a route that's like a 4-yard route, like I don't know what we're doing. Like,
they're running 4-yard routes when 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 7.
Or hey, Mac's gonna check it down to Ramondre Stevenson on 3rd and 11, 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Like, what are we doing? Like, what just it's like little things. It's crazy. Like, I can't.
That's the other. I mean, the play designs and the play concepts are awful.
They're horrible
because
the timing's off,
you don't throw that little outlet pass to Ramondre behind the line. You throw it about 3 or 4 yards forward of the line,
right?
So he doesn't have to worry about the defensive lineman trying to slow him down. Now he's got some space, and you have to only beat the linebacker, But
right.
It's like it's horrible. It's horrible, and it's embarrassing to watch. I did a podcast last night with 5 other people, none of them Patriots people, and they were all like. One of the guys actually played in the NFL, and he was like, that was embarrassing. And he's like, I never thought I'd see a Bill Belichick coach team play offense so terrible.
Well, and you know what's funny? We haven't really talked about the last play. Frankly, the last play was horrific, but like everyone who's listening to the show has already heard 1,000 other people talk about it.
Yeah.
And we're probably all in agreement. Okay. I'm more embarrassed about everything else with the game than the last 2 drives for me for both the Raiders and the Patriots are more embarrassing than the last play
we're gonna get to it.
The way the Patriots played offense and the way they played defense,
there.
it's just ridiculous.
Okay, I'm gonna give you guys another one, Derek. I think the game was lost here. Okay, there are so many places where the game was lost. It's the 2-minute warning. It's 4th down, 4th and 10. Steve and I actually talked about this. Steve's laughing because he knows where I'm going on this.
Yep.
They have been aggressive the entire game. Then they decide to go into prevent defense. Prevent defense, Derek. 4th and 10. Okay? This is where they lost the game as well because they were playing aggressive. They allowed this pass to happen to basically go up the field. Then they were preventing it from winning all the way up the field. So I think it actually is lost on 4th and 10.
Yeah, I was listening to Patriots Unfiltered, and Evan Lazar had pointed out how, this is a problem around the NFL with defenses in the last 2 minutes of games this year more than ever, with like offenses are just having their way with defenses. And I thought the Patriots, would be immune to something that keeps happening to people like this. But the saying goes is prevent defense. The only thing it prevents you to do is win.
Winning.
And, it's like how many times when the Raiders drove 81 yards on the last drive did Marcus Jones, I thought, did a pretty good job against Devontae Adams for the most part, except when they needed it, where he gave him a 12-yard cushion on a 10-yard, and then Devontae would run basically a comeback route, stop the sticks, 10 yards, first down. They did back-to-back times.
Right, but who's ultimately responsible? Who is telling him to do that?
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's Steve Gerrard or Bill, but either way, they're all either way they're all culprits. I mean, someone has to see that. I mean, we're all seeing it. I mean,
Derek Carr had 150 yards passing through 58 minutes.
The defense
in a minute and a half
until the end.
In a minute and a half, he had 81.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and he looked lost, especially almost the entire second half. They did nothing, and then on 4th and 10, there's the ball game.
Yep,
because it's less than 2 minutes, no timeouts, and you drop your corners 10 to 12 yards off the line. And of course, when the snap goes, they're still going to backpedal.
Sure.
Then they're struggling to get back. That's unfathomable to do that because all you have to, they're not going to chuck it 50 yards on 4th and 10. They're going, unless there was like 5 seconds left.
Right.
With that much time left, they're going to try to move the sticks.
And that's all.
Play them tight again and take your chances. If the guy beats you and he makes a good play or a really good pass, then you live with that. But don't hand it to him.
If I had told you guys before the game that Chandler Jones and Max Crosby wouldn't have gotten a sack, that Ramondre Stevenson would have 172 yards and a touchdown, that Devontae Adams would have less than 50 yards, that
for 28.
Yep. What? I'm sorry, what?
4 catches, 28.
For 28.
Yards.
Yep, for 28 yards. We would all say Patriots win. Like I wouldn't even need to see the game. Easy.
By 2 touchdowns.
Easy. If you look at some of the stats are so misleading in this game, and that's why it's like it came down to critical situations. Yep. I just can't. The thing that's so jarring to me, guys, is how undisciplined and how situationally poor this team is coached right now, which was their bread and butter for 2 decades. Bread and butter. I mean, that to me is the thing where it's like, and I still don't really even let's go to the last play of the game because I still don't really even understand Bill's logic of Mac he doesn't think Mac can get the ball there. I know Mac doesn't have a hose for an arm like Josh Allen. He threw the ball to 50 yards to Jacoby Myers. Like in the third, was that the third or fourth quarter? On that 43-yard catch on the 3-play drive where they had a busted coverage. Like Mac Jones could easily have thrown the ball 55 yards. I mean, not easily, but he could have stepped up into it and thrown it. I don't really get that. If you want to just do a draw, then just take a knee. Who cares? There's less risk in a draw. You've seen running backs fumble. It's very hard to fuck up. Very hard to F up. Just taking a knee there on the last play. I don't understand where Bill's thought was because even if Matt called a dumb play, Bill is constantly chiming in on what he thinks he should do. Hey, he used to do it to Josh all the time. Hey, Josh, let's go hurry up here. Hey, let's we got to keep pounding the rock. Like he has influence on the offense always. So I just don't understand. That's why it is. The press conference at the end, I thought wasn't sure he could get it there thing, which Mac Jones pushed back on, by the way, the next morning. I thought that was him covering up for a bad decision by Matt Patricia, and maybe he dropped the ball too. I don't know, but I felt like he passed the buck to Mac Jones there.
I mean, if there was still like, a minute and a half or whatever, yeah, go ahead, run the draw play. At 30 seconds, if you just take a knee, they can't stop the clock. And you won't even have to punt, and then it's you're into overtime. So, it was stupid.
It was very stupid. See, the only thing I will say, and I don't know if you guys saw Ramondre Stevenson after the game. I want to give him full credit for here because he actually took responsibility for this.
So did Jacoby.
They both did, and
Mac Jones did too.
Right?
How many coaches are taking that accountability, guys? I'm just
None.
wondering.
None.
That's why there's so much friction between the players and the coaches.
Right.
I feel like the players have felt like they haven't liked this since the summer. They've told us that all year long. All they have said is, when have you ever heard a player on the Patriots say, like Mac Jones, he wants to be coached harder in New England? When has that happened? So, since Bill has arrived, it never happens. And the coaches are not taking any responsibility or accountability, but the players are standing at their lockers answering the questions. You don't think that pisses you off as a human being? Of course it does. I mean, it's a joke. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, well, the one thing I want to say about Ramondre, because again, I watched this and he was asked if part of that play was by design, meaning to do the lateral. He said, no, that's actually on him. He actually was trying to make a play. He shouldn't have thrown it to Jacoby, but he said, I should have gone down. That's on me. So he took accountability. As you guys have already said, Jacoby took accountability. Mac Jones. When have the coaches taken accountability? Because they're the ones that actually made these decisions, the bad coaching, the way that they're coached right now. They look like such an undisciplined team. That's the part that is shocking to me. Like I said, I've never seen a play like this ever. Maybe you guys have seen it from other teams, but this to me was a joke, Steve. This was a joke. I'm watching this. The minute I saw Jacoby throw it back, I couldn't believe what he was doing. But then I thought to myself, this is basically typical of what's been going on. Sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
Well, again, talking to people last night who none of them are Patriots people. There was 5 others. And there's one guy who played in the NFL. He said, I was watching this, and he said, and Myers threw like 20 yards behind him toward Mac Jones. Now, he's like, forget the fact that Chandler Jones was in the way. He's like, he didn't see him, whatever. He's like, even if Mac Jones catches the football, he's got 50 yards to go. And he's like, no disrespect to Mac. He's like, but he ain't going to beat anyone. He's not going to beat 11 defenders from 50 yards out. And there's nobody behind him to ladder it to. So why even do that? He's the last guy back. You're supposed to ladder it back when you're moving forward and you're the front guy. And he's like, that's just horribly designed. If that was a design play, that was horrible. And I said, well, they're claiming that it wasn't the players freelance, but the coaches have not said a word. So
no, and that's the problem here. Listen,
and that will lose you the locker room because the players are stepping up, taking accountability, and your coaches are saying the only thing that was said, it was a mistake. That's what Bill said. It was a mistake. That's kind of like saying the Titanic had an ice problem.
Right,
as
Steve,
I wrote.
but how often have we seen this? I'm glad that you're bringing this up. That Bill has gone to the podium and said, this is on the players. This is on the coaching. We need to do a better job. I don't think he said this in that game.
Nope.
See, that's the part that's driving me crazy because he normally takes and basically owns up to this. I don't think he's owned up to this one.
Nope. Because he said, we have to play situational football better. We have to play, I forget the exact words, but yeah.
Right, but he usually puts himself in there too. He didn't do it.
But he kept saying we have to play,
Right. He didn't say we need to coach these situations better. And Derek, I think that's the shocking part of all of this. We've been watching a well-coached team for many, many years. Have there been issues over the years? Listen, we named the podcast Patriots 4th and 2 over a very controversial decision. Okay, so there have been coaching decisions that we haven't agreed upon. But have you ever seen a Patriots team that has been this badly coached? I can't remember one under Belichick. Can you?
No, I can't. I really can't. And there's a lot of things I can't believe. We haven't seen them be that poorly coached. We haven't seen what seems like such a clear and obvious divide between the players and the coaches. I mean, and the production meeting, in Arizona, I'm sorry, what the broadcast team said on Monday Night Football, where the Kraft, where Robert came into the production meeting and talked to, the booth and saw Joe and Troy. Sorry, my head's rattling with too many ideas, but and then they start talking about how he's openly frustrated. There was no report to refute that. When Greg Bedard threw out that this week that Bill could be fired, there's usually someone usually has a report that says that no, there was no counter report. There's some clear and obvious to me smoke to this fire here, and I don't know where it's headed, but I think the Crafts are pissed, and I think that I really do think it's going to come down to a very big meeting after the season where they're going to sit down, and I think it's going to get really interesting really fast because, I mean, if I'm Robert, it's been 3 years of poor decisions. I spent $250 million to fix mistakes that were made because this team can't draft or develop players to save their life on a consistent basis the last few years. And now you're seeing your young quarterback regress. You're seeing your offense drop from a top 10 to a bottom-ranked offense in the league. And you're literally getting a laughingstock. I mean, if I'm Robert, I'm looking at this and be like, okay, enough is enough. Like, Bill, I love you, but we can't do it like this.
Okay. So I'm going to put you now, since you've taken us there, Derek, You are Robert Kraft. What's the ultimatum?
I kind of already said it. My ultimatum is, Bill, we need to bring in more coaches. It can't be just, you can't be just, you can't just have your friends. We need to beef up this coaching staff, and I would like him to go outside of I don't want another player I don't really want like another coach who he has a relationship with because he played there. Like, that's why I'm like kind of pushing back on the Cliff Kingsbury thing, Steve. It's like, he was here. I don't even want that. I want people with different ideas, new ideas. Besides, the Cardinals offense has been a joke all year. Like,
how about Chip Kelly?
I would take something new, something with different ideas. Like they need to bring this offense to the modern day. If they're going to blow it up because they had so many layers of Brady and all the influence of 20 years of building, and it's just like, they need to bring in new, innovative ideas from different people outside of his circle on all phases of the game, but specifically on offense.
Okay. Steve, before we go on, Claire has something that she shared here. Have you considered that this is just one very bad mistake? They end play, the sky isn't falling, in my opinion.
See, I totally disagree, Claire, and I'll explain why. Real quick. I'll be
go
quick.
ahead.
I'm just saying that one big thing would be for, okay, you want to talk about putting Joe Judge and Matt Patricia and the coaching staff. If that's the one big bad mistake that you're referencing, I would say okay, but it's not. It's an avalanche effect of now you're watching your second year quarterback regress. His mechanics are all off. And then if you ruin Mac Jones, because he'll be the quarterback next year, so it's like if you ruin Mac Jones, you just set your franchise back 3 years plus however long it takes to get the next guy up to speed.
Yep.
Like, so it's an avalanche effect. I didn't mean to jump in, but I keep seeing things like that and I get pissed off.
Okay. Before I go to Steve, I'll share this comment from our friend Chris Goodwin, Robert Kraft to Bill. Change this shit or I will fire you. Sorry, Miguel. That I swore there, but I wanted to share that. All right, Steve, you're Robert Kraft. I think you kind of already said what you would do is the same thing as what Derek just said. What do you say to Bill?
I'm telling him he needs to bring in other people or we're going to make a change. This isn't working. And to Claire's point, look, it isn't just one play. It's 100 plays all season long. How many times have they, how many times do we see Mac Jones in each game have to realign guys who are lining up in the wrong place? How many false starts have we seen? Oh. Mental mistakes, the penalties, the whole 9 yards,
delay of games, guys. They're still doing delay of games. Yeah.
Delay of games because the play isn't coming in fast enough, and then when he does get to play, they line up with less than 10 seconds to go. The defense shows something else. And when they try to change it, they run out of time. This is ongoing all season long. Teams are calling out plays that they've seen because they're so simple that they've seen it on tape because the playbook must be like half a page long, they're snuffing everything out before it even gets started. This is not just one play in one game. This is multiple plays in Sunday's game and all season long. As Derek said, they went from a top 10 offense to one of the worst in a year where they added pretty decent players. They should have been better this year, not tanking. Okay. And it's not because of
unintentionally taking, just because they suck, not because they're trying to.
No, they're not trying. Guys,
Claire, I saw your comment. I'll DM you.
Yeah, I want to share these comments from Claire. She says that we're taking her out of context. So I'm sorry if we have done that.
And,
Claire.
And to Claire's point earlier, I disagree with her being the offensive coordinator. I said she should be the assistant tight end coach.
Oh yeah, well that goes without saying. That goes without saying. I would do that. She should be working for the Patriots, and it's funny because they're not getting enough out of the tight end. So I wouldn't be against including Claire in that room. Certainly, she couldn't do any worse than what's being done right now, taking advantage of two tight ends in their prime, and they are not living up to their expectations. Who does that fall on?
Coaching.
Coaching. So Claire, I'm actually backing you to be the assistant tight ends coach. I'm just going to say that.
Like Johnny Smith, like to me, is just like a missed evaluation. I mean, a missed evaluation from the GM. Like
is it or is it bad coaching?
I think it hasn't looked right here since the entire time. Like to me, you could argue that for Hunter Henry, right, Russ? Like we saw Hunter. Like last year, we didn't see Jonnu Smith really produce much. He was underproductive, right? But we saw Hunter Henry produce. This year, we're not seeing it produce. I would argue that's coaching. I would argue Jonnu Smith, it hasn't looked right since the moment he walked in the door because he tripped over himself when he walked in. I've never seen a guy so athletic and so jacked with the frame he has. Looks like he's like every time the football is thrown to him, it looks like someone's throwing him some C4. It's like, and then it's like he's got like ankle weights on. I don't know what's happening with him. He's either uncoordinated or he's uncomfortable or I don't know, but he hasn't been a good fit for the moment. So I put that one on Bill.
Okay. Well, I've changed my mind with Claire because she would bring in Ryan Izzo. So I'm sorry, Claire. I wouldn't have you.
That's why we wouldn't make her the GM.
No, you're getting fired. You're getting fired before Bill.
Okay. Well, interesting stuff. It's funny, guys. We do have to talk about a game coming up, and it's against the Bengals, who are a very good team. So coming up next, we're going to preview the Patriots game Saturday against the Bengals. Okay, guys, let's get to it. Is there any chance for the rest of the season? Can they make the playoffs? I don't think so, but you still want them to win. There's still a chance. I don't believe in this past stuff, but there still is a chance as long as they are alive. So, Steve, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on the Bengals going into this game?
The Bengals are starting to fire on all cylinders. You saw what happened in Tampa on Sunday. The offense is playing better. The defense is playing better. They're going to be an extremely tough matchup.
Okay. Derek, your opening thoughts on the Bengals?
The Bengals are going to do something this weekend that they haven't done in 36 years, since before I was alive, which is win a game in Foxborough. They have not won, and they're 0-7 in their last few trips. They haven't won since 1986, and that's hat tip to Henry McKenna, by the way. I saw that earlier.
I think I was at that game, by the way.
Probably
no,
were.
I'm serious. I think I was at that game.
You were there. You were there. That's the last time they did, and now I'll be at 1986.
I think I was at that game.
Yeah. And now I'll be at this one. So we'll, it's changing hands.
That's right.
But I'll tell you guys this. I mean, I think what Steve said is 100% accurate. The Bengals are rounding into form. It took them a couple games earlier on in the season to kind of get things going, but Joe Burrow is, obviously one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And that defense is very active. It's going to be a tough challenge for the Patriots. Now, I'm not saying there's no shot they're going to win, but I just have no faith in them not, executing in the big moments right now against a team that, was just in the Super Bowl, last year.
Okay. Well, that's going to go to our matchups. Mr. Balstrey, I'll go to you first. Which team has the advantage? The Patriots are on offense and the Bengals are on defense in the running game. What do you give the advantage to? Bengals. Okay. Would you like to expand on that?
I'll be happy to expand on that. The Patriots' offensive line has had problems all season long. Last week, they weren't bad.
No.
I thought they did a fair job in the running game. I gave them good marks for that. Pass protection, they were okay. I mean, yeah, they didn't give up any sacks, but Mac was getting the ball out in 2.3 seconds. So you have to take that into consideration. I think this Bengals team is just going to pin their ears back and come charging all game long because I don't think they fear the passing game of New England.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
If I was coaching Foxborough High School, I might not. So, as Bill is fond of saying. But anyway, I just think they're going to take the Patriots out of that running game.
Okay.
Because they're going to dare them to throw it. I think you're going to see 7 and 8 man boxes.
Oh, okay.
And we know what happens then.
We do. And that leads me to go to Derek. Which team has the advantage when the Patriots are on offense and the Bengals are on defense in the passing game? I don't even think I need to ask, but I'm going to ask, who has the advantage?
No, the Bengals have the advantage. They're, the third best defense against the pass in the NFL right now. They are, to Steve's point, they do pin their ears back. I know he was talking specifically for this matchup, but they have pinned their ears back and go. They have some really good players up front. A couple of good ends, real good linebackers, some very active secondary. I think they're well coached back on that end too. They're not perfect, all the way around, but against the pass, they're one of the better defenses in the league.
Okay. All right. Steve, back to you. When the Patriots are on defense and the Bengals are on offense, who has the advantage in the running game?
Cincinnati.
Okay.
I think that they've been running the ball. They have a really good back. And, with the Patriots facing these receivers that Joe Burrow has, they have to play a lot of light packages. And I think that's going to play right into the hands of, I think you're going to see a lot of, safeties on the field trying to cover all these guys. So
yep.
I think that plays into the Bengals running the football effectively.
Okay. All right, Derek, over to you. Patriots are on defense. The Bengals are on offense. In the passing game, who do you give the advantage to?
Cincinnati. I just don't have I'm going to be honest. I just don't have a lot of faith in almost anything the Patriots are doing right now. Like I thought there were times throughout the year that they had that each unit kind of had some individual plays, but I just can't put enough stock to really pick them in any one area against a team that was just in the Super Bowl last year and one of the hottest teams in the league right now. So I'm taking Cincinnati.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do it, guys. Let's do our 3 keys to victory. Probably need about 10 of them, Steve, but give me 3 keys to victory and your prediction.
Okay. Number 1 is the Patriots have to run the football if they're going to win this game. They have to run the football. They have to keep Joe Burrow as much as they can on the sidelines under his big coat. I think that's imperative for them. They can't get behind in this game and be forced to try to chuck it to either get back in the game or keep pace.
Okay.
Number 2 is they're going to need their pass rushers in this game to be tremendous. I think they have to pressure and sack Burrow consistently through 4 quarters if they're going to have any chance at all of slowing down this team enough where they can score 13 points and win, because that's probably all they're going to get. And the third one is don't play like a bunch of knuckleheads, because this team, when Scott Zolak says on the air that this is the dumbest football team I've ever seen, that's saying something.
And he's tight with Bill too.
Yeah.
And he's played on some teams that were pretty bad himself. So
yeah. So that tells you, don't be knuckleheads. Don't be stupid. My prediction, 38-10. I don't have to tell you who.
Okay. All right.
Oof.
And you know, Claire, they're not going to win.
Okay. Claire thinks they're going to win. Listen, that's Claire being Claire. I want to give her credit for sticking by the Pats. Derek, over to you. Your 3 keys and your also your prediction.
My first key is pretty much just I guess just kind of what Steve said. It's like, just don't make stupid mistakes. Like, just, obviously some things are going to happen, but you can't put yourself behind the 8 ball because they're just not good enough to overcome anything. I mean, how many times have we seen, a run for 3 or 4 yards and then all of a sudden they have a false start and then it's over. It's like the drive is over. It's like almost every drive we've seen, it's like there's so many little mistakes, delay games because either the call's late or Mac's late or to set or whatever it is. It's just horrendous. So just don't put yourself behind the 8 ball with, little mistakes. I think second big key for me is I think they got to try to get the lead early. If they can get a lead early, obviously Burrow has the firepower to come back and score. To Steve's point earlier, we saw that with Tampa just last week. But at least if the Patriots have the lead, they can control the game a little bit more with the ball. And to me, that leads me to my third key is this has to be a big ground and pound game. You have to keep Joe Burrow on the sidelines. If he's on the field, you got to play the same way that teams wanted to play the Patriots and Peyton Manning for so long. You got to keep those guys on the sideline with their coats on. I'm going with the Patriots a little closer than Steve. I'm going 34-17.
You mean the Bengals or are you going with the Patriots?
No, the Bengals 34-17.
Okay, I just wanted to
I will say this. It will – I've seen this team enough for the Jekyll and Hyde moments. I could see the Patriots winning this game. I don't see them winning the next two. But the only way they do that is the same way they've done it every year, and it's if they score defensive or special teams touchdown.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I'm going to share some comments first from our friend Chris. The Patriots win on Saturday. You can thank Sky Sports who are showing the game live to us fans in the UK. Okay. Of course, Claire did predict a victory. Pats are going to win, and followed up by Chris's 3 keys. I think you guys will like this. 3 keys to Mission Impossible victory. Allow Mac to throw the ball, aggressive on defense, and gag Matt Patricia from play calling. Get Claire over here to Foxborough to call the plays.
No, I like that. Terrible idea. We're going to be doing like a fullback dive with Jonnu Smith up the middle, and then she's going to throw it to Hunter Henry 31 times.
Well, this is Claire. Key, get Hunter the ball, baby.
I mean,
okay.
I'll just say, yeah, I mean, at this point, I'll take anybody to call it over, Matt. So.
Oh, look what Steve's wearing.
Yeah.
Claire gives her
Christmas miracle.
21 to 20.
There we go.
Okay.
They only lose by 28.
Your beard's matching your hat.
So I'm going to give my
Don't
prediction.
Remind me.
I'm not going to predict the Patriots victory. I'm going to predict the Bengals victory. First time since 1986 when I watched them play with Boomer Esiason. So I'm going to go with the Bengals 31-17. I think the Patriots will score, but I think the Bengals have too much, so I'm going 31-17. Okay. Guys, great show. And again, I just want to say to Derek and Steve, I did catch you off guard, so thank you for doing such a great show on the fly. Derek, final thoughts before we go.
My final thoughts are, we didn't talk about the play at all because I think
we really didn't.
No, I didn't mean the last play. I meant the Keenan Cole touchdown. I thought Paul Perillo post game had a really, really good point and kind of ranted about it. And basically what he was saying is, it's unfortunate that if that game doesn't get flexed, and that's the Sunday night game, that, NBC has that has the camera that rotates and you can kind of do the NBC it, thing. And he's like, you probably have a better idea of if he's in or out. And he was like, it's pretty unfortunate that a league that creates multi-billion dollars in revenue doesn't have the same camera angles for every single game and doesn't have enough camera angles to see clear and definitive things, especially around the most important area, which is the end zones. And I thought that was a good point, and I want to reiterate it because I stand by it 100%.
Okay.
Have a bake sale, as Bill said.
Yep, bake sale.
Okay. Steve, final thoughts before we take off here.
Well, I just wanted to wish you two guys Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Happy New Year. We all hope it's safe, happy,
healthy.
And, everyone's going to get along a little better. I mean, our country is coming apart at the seams, it seems at times. So, but anyway, I just wanted to tell both of you that it's always fun. It's always enjoyable. We've been doing it for 11 plus years, and let's hope for 11 more.
Okay. I'm there with you, Steve. And thank you for sharing. My final thoughts will be that I actually will not be here for the game. Derek will be here. I'm going to be in New York. So it should be interesting to see if I could even watch the game. It's not on local TV, so I don't know if I'll actually even be able to watch the game. Probably a good idea. Probably a good idea.
Russ, seriously, I can help you out with that. Just talk to me offline.
Okay, Derek.
I have a way. I can get you.
Okay, I'm sure you do. Well, we could talk about that offline. I know my son would be very happy if you could figure out a way. So I will talk to you off air. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Patriots 4th and 2. I'm glad that Steve already said this. I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We'll be back before that, and also a Happy Hanukkah. But that's going to wrap up this episode. For Steve Balestrieri and Derek Havens, I'm Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Patriots 4th and 2, the official podcast of PatsFans.com.